Sure. So we'll start our first session of the day. We titled it Infrastructure for Scalable and Reproducible Workflows. And due to travel reasons, we will have 3 talks instead of 4 that were scheduled. And the first talk is titled Free Your Code, a progress update on Radicle, the peer-to-peer code forge, presented by Lorenz Leutgeb. Feel free to set up. Lorenz is a free software enthusiast and contributor to the Radicle project. So we're looking forward to your talk, and the stage is yours. Thank you.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for coming to my talk this early. I hope to get your blood pumping a bit for code and open source. Thanks to Distribits for inviting Radicle, Lars, and me to speak here. We were initially only intending to attend as well regular attendees in the audience, but then we were invited to talk here, and I took up this this occasion. So thanks for making this possible. Since I'm not really, I have to admit, I'm not really connected to this community about Git Annex and data-led and scientific computing so much. So I think I can give a quick introduction. I'm a free software enthusiast. I program in Rust. So Radicle is written in Rust. I use NixOS, Fish, and Jujitsu. For those who have been here yesterday, Jujitsu is what I kind of demoed. I'm born in Vienna and I like the snow. I started contributing to Radicle a bit more than a year ago. In my free time, I like to go skiing, sometimes so high up that I have to carry my skis. And yeah, and my day job is a PhD student in theoretical computer science. This is not the reason why I'm here, but just as another background for you, I usually do theorem proving for exotic fragments of first-order logic, but I'm also very passionate about free software. So let's start off just repeating for ourselves that we remember Git is a distributed version control system. And this aspect has been maybe a bit forgotten, I think. So I want to just nail this down once again. It's a free and open source distributed version control system. What does this mean? This means you can basically sync code between any 2 devices that run Git, and you have even other possibilities of syncing code, for example, via a USB stick, if you do a Git bundle and bundle your repository into just a file, and then you can transfer the file and you can use this file as a remote and so on. So it's really quite flexible, and Radicle uses a lot of this flexibility. The status quo, however, is that most people, I get the feeling, use Git not in this super decentralized way. So the status quo is more that we have Git, yes, on the client, but then we have a forge, usually website, and an API. So you know platforms like GitHub, GitLab, SourceHut, Codeberg, and so on. And there are self-hosted alternatives like GitHub for Jeho, which we heard about an extension of for Jeho for Git Annex yesterday, Tangled, and so on. And there's also folks, for example, the whole development of Git itself and the Linux kernel, which is more focused around a flow that uses Git and email. And yeah, really the big part of this is the centralization that you have, especially with like these really big platforms like GitHub. There's a lot of work going on federating software development around Git and using Git for other purposes. So again, email, I consider email like a federated system. We have these email servers, and you basically sync your code over your email server, and then you download it to your mail client, and then you continue. Then we have ideas of using ActivityPub, and Tangled is a system that uses add protocol to basically federate between servers. Right. And I want to mention this once again. There are many issues with GitHub. So if you look on the internet and search for blogs and search for accounts, you will find out that people constantly get banned without any notice. So you have blog posts that say, how GitHub abruptly banned my account, including all my repositories, without notice. And then you have things like, GitHub account has been restricted due to US sanctions as I live in Crimea. Then we have things like the GitHub CEO stepping down and saying things like, yeah, this is now part of Microsoft Core AI division and so on. Then you have people posting on Hacker News saying that their GitHub account was suspended without warning or explanation. Then you have the whole YouTube DL fiasco, where there were takedown requests, so the source code for YouTube DL was removed from GitHub. Then there, of course, was a big Streisand effect, so people started uploading the source code of YouTube DL to everywhere else. They started encoding the source code of YouTube DL into images and posted that on wherever, on social media. And recently, we also have this theme of like AI and it really being unclear how the code there is being processed and whether the licenses are really valued. So for example, if the license of open source code requires attribution, then it should not be possible, or you have to attribute it. So you would, if your AI system would reproduce the code, it should attribute and say where this code is actually from. To make a bit of an analogy here for the scientists, I mean, I guess you all want your papers cited, of course, but you don't want them plagiated. You want them properly cited, right? So you want people to read your papers, you want them to think about your ideas, but you want some form of proper credit. And these AI systems that you use, which just reproduce nice code, whatever language, Python code, maybe that solves your problem, they are using the code that people somehow wrote. And do you get any citation kind of thing? No, you don't. It's just pops out of these AIs. And there are people, I would say rightfully so, question this and say, well, how did this just happen? How did my code end up in this AI system and it's just reproducing it? And sometimes you really have cases where it's just a one-to-one reproduction. And then, yeah, okay, maybe this is a bit, maybe more opinionated even, like this enshittification question, like GitHub as a platform, how will it continue? Who is really profiting off of that? How do internet platforms really work? Who extracts value out of them? I don't know. I see many people pouring their heart and soul into their code, and then I see a big corporation like Microsoft making billions of profit a year. And yeah, I cannot really pin this down any further, but it's just a few question marks and maybe something to think about. Right, so this slide should sum up a bit like my qualms about GitHub and just using GitHub without reflecting about it. So I also use GitHub daily because it's so ubiquitous. In free software, it's hard to even make do without using GitHub servers. But this just comes to show how far we have like advanced in this direction. And yeah, I just want you to question this a bit more. So what's the idea for Radicle then? We want a system for collaboration on code that is distributed and decentralized. What do we mean by decentralized and what follows from that? So we don't want to trust in third parties. Again, going back to GitHub, if GitHub decides to serve malicious code, injecting some backdoor, Microsoft injecting a backdoor in your code, well, it might be possible to detect it, but if they serve, like they could be duplicitous, right? They could serve you the correct code, and they could serve someone else the malware, for example. So things like this should be addressed. We don't want a single point of failure, and this is not meant as one single computer cannot fail, but like the whole network should not have a single point of failure. So with Radicle, if you shut down one node or two node or three nodes, the network doesn't really care. If your repository is replicated on multiple nodes, then really all of these nodes have to shut down for your code to go offline. And then also there is this idea of no servers. So in Radicle, we run a peer-to-peer network, and every node in that network runs the same code. So there's no distinction between a client and a server. I run Radicle node on my laptop, and I run Radicle node on a server. And yes, they have different trade-offs, different topologies. How do they connect to the internet? But they run the same code, and this is very important for us. So this is completely symmetric. There's no server instance to deploy and client to install in the technical sense. They both run the same code, and they're just nodes in the peer-to-peer network. And we want this thing to be censorship resistant. You can run Radicle over Tor today. It's really, really hard to censor users on Radicle. This has implications in terms of content moderation, but it's something that we still want to support. If you consider how people are censored, just try to collaborate with people in other parts of the world, like in China or in Russia. Try to set up a collaboration with them over GitHub. You will run into trouble sooner or later. Yeah, so, and then of course, how do we make this work? Sorry, I forgot about this slide. We want something where users are in control of their data and their identity, right? So if someone decides to migrate their data off, then they should be able to do that, and they should be in control of who gets to access their data completely. And this somehow people think that everything they put on Radicle is immediately public. This is not true. We offer private repositories, and you can select explicitly which nodes are allowed to replicate your repository. We understand that this is not, I don't know, we don't have organization management with members that you can drag and drop somewhere, but it's early stages. So we can build these features on top. So just to say that we support private repositories, but don't expect something like your GitLab instance where you just invite members and so on. It's a bit of a different flavor. Right, so now coming to how to build this. Yeah, I think I don't have to tell you much about using Git. Git is quite well known, but we have to add something because Git alone doesn't provide all the primitives that we need to make this happen. So Git provides us content addressability and an efficient sync protocol, local storage, that's like flexible object storage that is local first. So when you work on code, you can download everything and then you can hop on a plane and continue working. And it's well known and established. So there's not much question about why would you use Git. But on top of that, we have to somehow take care about repository identity, discoverability, availability, and a user identity that somehow makes sense on the network. So this is something that might seem a bit strange to you because you're used to just log in to some entity, some server, and they will authenticate you, and basically they are in control of saying who you are. But we have no such instance in Radicle. There is no one who tells you your password must be such and such. It's completely peer-to-peer, and you can generate your own identity. Your identity is just a key pair, and from that on, every action you take on the network is cryptographically signed with that key pair, and then it can be replicated, and no one can really tell you to use another key or things like this. And then, of course, a big part of collaborating on code is social artifacts, so issues, patches, and so on. And those of you that know and have worked with Git immediately think, well, if you put an issue description into a Git repository, don't you get merge conflicts when two collaborators edit this at the same time? So we also have to solve this. we have our own flavor of CRDTs, conflict-free replicated data types. So this means data structures that you can just keep combining, and you never get a merge conflict. It's a bit hard to set this up in the first place, and you have to think about how you design those data structures, but it's possible. So by using CRDTs and storing those in Git repositories, you don't have these merge conflicts. This system is extensible. We call it collaborative objects, and you can design your own collaborative objects and plug that in to Radicle. For peer-to-peer replication, we just use Git's smart protocol. So we just connect two nodes using Git, and then we tell the node that wants to download to fetch, and then this kicks off the synchronization protocol via Git, which is very efficient. And then we use public key cryptography to solve the identity problem. Right, so it's a code forge that facilitates the social interactions around code. It emphasizes this decentralized foundation of Git very much. We did not invent this, we're just using Git in the way that maybe it was intended, or at least it very well supports. We have peer-to-peer networking that leverages the smart synchronization of Git, and we use public key cryptography to underpin identity and attribution. So user accounts are currently tied very much to public keys. There's no single point of failure. If you have enough nodes replicate your repository, if you have a public repository, then it's usually not a problem to get nodes to replicate it. And users are always in control of like what to do with their repositories, whether it should be public or private and so on. So if you think about Radicle, think about this. It's a network. We have kind of two flavors of protocols. We have the gossip protocol and we have the fetch protocol. Fetch protocol is basically just Git. And if you see these circles there, then please don't think about servers or anything. These are not servers. These are laptops, mobile devices, and servers, and they look the same to the network, and it's really important to us. Okay, I have to speed up a bit. I will skip the part about collaborative objects. Feel free to talk to me later. A quick status report is we are proud that we are pumping out releases this year. We did like 4 releases already. We have a 5th scheduled, and maybe we can do a 6th. We have released 1.0, so the current features can be considered stable. We have a feature called canonical references, which is pretty cool. This solves the problem of finding the canonical state of your main branch in a distributed system. We have CI. If you want to talk CI, we have Lars. I think he's very happy to talk to you about it. We have private repositories, and we have very easy integration with Tor. So you can just use Radicle over Tor pretty easily. What's next? We have lots of work in front of us. We need an identity design that supports key rotation and revocation. We want to have a concept of agents, not LLM agents, but anything that can perform an action. We want to implement multi-device usage. So currently it is possible, but a bit finicky, to move your identity, so your public key, from one device to another. We want to make this easier. We have a Windows build since a few weeks. We need to stabilize this more. It was initially developed on Linux, and macOS works also really well, but on Windows we still have rough edges. We want to improve our networking, especially we want to get nodes that are in the same local network to connect to each other. This is rather easy if you just want to do it for one platform, but we are really looking for a cross-platform solution. So we are looking in a cross-platform implementation of multicast DNS for zeroconf, so DNSSD over multicast. We want to explore using IRO and libp2p for an alternative networking stack that doesn't use TCP and therefore sadly currently cannot use Tor, but uses UDP and has different trade-offs. And we want to improve our bootstrap diversity and more fine-grained policies in terms of permissions, and which nodes you interact with, and so on. This then also should evolve into better content moderation, so deciding whose code you want to see and whose code you don't want to see. Yeah, and I will close with maybe one remark about, that's maybe a bit closer to the community here. I don't want to like lose you completely. You might not know, okay, it's nice that there's this peer-to-peer system. What would I use it for, you know? So Radicle, in a sense, is just Git, okay? It replicates repositories, and if you're using Git Annex and DataLad and so on, it's compatible, right? So you can use that. But I get the feeling that many of you in the crowd here are employed by research institutes, and many of you are using their own Git server instances, which are private and are well maintained by an established research institute. And yeah, sure, then maybe Radicle is not for you in your workplace, but not everyone is in this situation, right? So consider that not everyone has this infrastructure, not everyone has their own infra team or IT administrator that can redeploy the newest version or whatever, and general has these resources. So we are really looking for a solution that is easy to deploy and can run on, or any device is a bit of a strong claim, but can run on any laptop, and can synchronize code from one machine to another machine, from one laptop to another laptop, without any server in the middle, without setting up anything. This is a bit of a different target audience, I do realize that, but yeah, maybe it's a bit of an inspiration for you, or it strikes up new thoughts in yourself to think about this whole centralization, decentralization topic from a bit of a different perspective, because in your workplace, you might not be involved into this in your day-to-day, and that's okay, I understand. Right, so feel free to talk to me about this, check out our website. We have our guides that give a bit of an intro into Radicle from a few different perspectives, like user stories or use cases. We have a Zulip instance that you can use to chat with us. It's basically like a forum chat mix. And that's it. Thank you.